Prime Minister Mark Carney meets the media for the first time since his election win. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The election was Monday. Here it is Friday, and the winner just wrapped up his first post-election news conference with the Canadian news media. Liberal leader and Prime Minister Mark Carney was in the National Press Theatre in Ottawa today, outlining his government's priorities for the coming Parliament. We have learned that the Prime Minister will go to Washington next week and meet with U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday. Two have already spoken by phone. That happened on Monday, just after the election.
And we agreed to meet next Tuesday in Washington. Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations. My government will fight to get the best deal for Canada. We will take all the time necessary, but not more, in order to do so.
We learned today that a new cabinet will be sworn in on May 12th. And some more big news. The King is coming to Ottawa. King Charles will open the new Parliament with a speech from the throne on the 27th of May.
In the coming weeks, I will unveil more of our plans to engage with Canadians as we embark on the biggest transformation of our economy since the end of the Second World War. This will be an incredibly exciting time as we take control of our economic destiny to create a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. We will begin to set out that new path for Canada with a new cabinet to be sworn in on the week of the 12th of May and the recall of Parliament on May 26th. We will have the privilege of welcoming His Majesty King Charles III, who will deliver Canada's speech from the throne on May 27th. Her Majesty the Queen will join this visit. This is an historic honor which matches the weight of our times.
The last British monarch to open Parliament in Canada was the late Queen Elizabeth II in 1977. During his opening remarks, Carney outlined much of what he pledged on the campaign trail, standing up to Trump, passing a tax cut, building more homes, bringing down interprovincial trade barriers, cracking down on crime, and spending more on national defense. He then opened the floor to questions from members of the press gallery. Here's a few minutes of that.
Hi, Mr. Carney. In your second call with the president, did Mr. Trump outright say or insinuate at any point that Canada should become the 51st state?
He did not.
All right. We've heard Mr. Trump on April 23rd and his surrogates throughout the final days of the campaign reiterate the idea that they believe Canada should become the 51st state. On the campaign trail, you said on multiple occasions that respect for Canada would be one of the key things in terms of having a meeting with him. Do you think over the past few days we have seen respect for Canada from the Trump administration?
Look, it's always important to distinguish want from reality. La volonté et la réalité, right? What someone wants and what is reality, and what the Canadian people clearly have stated, virtually without exception, is this will never, ever happen. And if any of the leaders of the party and their representatives would attest to that, I think the votes attest to it. I think the public dialogue attests to it as well. We're meeting as heads of our government to discuss that partnership. Now, I'm not pretending those discussions will be easy or they won't proceed in a straight line. There will be zigs and zags, ups and downs. But as I said in my remarks, I will fight for the best deal for Canada and only accept the best deal for Canada and take as much time that's necessary.
Davis Legree, iPolitics.
Hi, thanks for taking our questions. Just one from me to try and squeeze some more reporters in. But to my colleague's point, the White House's public position has continued to be that Canada should be the 51st state. You yourself have said that Donald Trump is trying to break Canada. Considering all that, how can you expect good faith negotiations when you travel to Washington next week?
Look, I think first I've had the direct conversation with him on whatever day it was, Tuesday, I guess it was, a couple of days ago. And we agreed to have those negotiations. Very clear discussion between us, as I said, very constructive. I would say the time allocated to our meeting and the seniority of he's the president, so that's as senior as you get, but the other members of his administration who will be assisting at those meetings suggests the seriousness of the discussions. Again, do not expect white smoke out of that meeting. There'll be white smoke probably later somewhere else in the world this month, but do not expect that. But so that's the first thing, is just the level of the direct dialogue, the discussion, the level of people there. The second point, I'll make it quickly, and thank you for restricting the question so others can get in, is that he respects, as others who are good negotiators, and he's one of the best negotiators, they respect strength. That's why we're building Canada Strong. There's lots of reasons to build Canada Strong, but the point is, and I will make this point repeatedly, we have more than enough to do here at home. That point about we can give ourselves more than the Americans can take away is absolutely right. We can have a bigger boost to our economy, to incomes, to jobs, by focusing on building one Canadian economy, by building these nation-building projects, by focusing on getting productivity up, by reducing government waste, by driving investment in this country. And so that is a good in and of itself. We're going to focus on that while we have these negotiations with the Americans. And if the negotiations with the Americans take longer, so be it. We've got more than enough to do here.
It's Prime Minister Mark Carney in Ottawa within the last hour, taking some questions from members of the Parliamentary Press Gallery. A lot more to it than that. That was his first such news conference with the Press Gallery since winning the election on Monday night, with the Liberal Party forming a minority government. On that minority government, Prime Minister Carney said he has no plans to enter into any kind of formal agreement with the New Democrats. And as well as for Pierre Poilievre, who is probably going to be seeking a seat to run in a by-election, Mr. Carney said if that comes to pass and Mr. Poilievre can find a riding to run in, he would call that election, the by-election, as soon as possible. But just to recap some of the other highlights: Cabinet swearing in May 12th. Parliament will be recalled on the 26th. They'll elect a speaker, and then they'll have a speech from the throne. And that will be delivered by King Charles III. That will be the very next day, on the 27th. The Royals have confirmed by way of Buckingham Palace it will be a quick 2-day visit to Canada, May 26th and 27th. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
He's with us every week, our expert in communications, political communications, leadership. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. You can read Barry on his Substack, and he joins us today from Calgary. Hi there, Barry.
Rob, great to chat with you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of breaking news that we should get your take on. First of all, Mark Carney is bringing the King is coming to Ottawa to open up Parliament and read the speech from the throne. What do you think about that?
Well, that is amazing on several levels here. Obviously, his work as governor of the Bank of England didn't go to waste. He's able to make those kind of connections, and it's so unusual to have happened. I think the Queen did it once. I can't even recall that. I think
1977, Barry. Yeah, 1977.
There you go.
Yeah.
And given his current health status in particular, it was wonderful. He's obviously making this kind of effort to do this. So I think it's also a recognition that Canada is an important part of the Commonwealth, and he needs to make sure that when the world gets somewhat unstable, as it has been, that he's sending a strong message to Canadians that he is actually the King of Canada.
Yeah, he said today, because he was questioned by some members of the press gallery from Quebec, where they're not really fond of the Crown, why are you doing this? And he said it's an important reflection of Canadian sovereignty. It's a message of Canadian sovereignty to have the ultimate head of state open the Parliament, was part of his reasoning for that. He also said there will be no formal deals with the NDP. I believe we have some audio of this. David, go ahead.
Governing pact of any kind with the NDP?
No. Short answer, no.
And why not?
Why? That's my response. Is we campaigned on a very clear set of objectives, very clear policies to back those up, and we received the highest number of votes in Canadian history. Yes, it is not quite a majority, but highest number of votes. As I said moments ago, majorities in 7 of the 10 provinces, seats in all the provinces, highest vote totals and deputy counts in a number of those provinces. And it's also a style of governing as well, which is in order to do what we need to do as a country, we will need to work in partnership with all the provinces, with Indigenous peoples. Yes, obviously, by definition in Parliament, we will need to get majority support to pass legislation. But this is legislation that Canadians...
Okay, yeah, that's good. So we won the election. It's a Liberal government, and we're not doing deals, any kind of formal deal with the NDP. What do you think about how he responded there?
Well, I thought it was very interesting. I mean, it'd be great to count on those 7 NDP votes, but he realizes from the last government, from the Trudeau government, that it has its downside too. You know, that you don't quite get the credit for what you did, whether it's dental care, pharmacare, whatever. That was the NDP, and the poor NDP got so squashed in it that that was a mistake too. So, from a political perspective, anyway. So I think that was kind of the right approach to take. My biggest concern, if I were him, is I didn't hear him say this. 168 seats versus 172 seats. This is a critical difference here. It means that really the opposition will be chairing most of the parliamentary committees. That they will be a majority opposition on the committees. And that is not minor, because those committees, we do train in how to appear for parliamentary committees, that, oh my gosh, it's actually a very significant difference. Those extra 4 seats would be very, nobody's raised this. That's profoundly important. So I'm a little surprised. Of course, he's not going to telegraph this outside, but, other support from other players, other governments have done it. Stephen Harper brought David Emerson came over, made him a cabinet minister.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So bargaining could be done.
Yeah. And Belinda Stronach, everybody remembers Belinda Stronach, right? How that unfolds. Scott Bryson as well crossed the floor from the Conservatives to join the Liberals as well. Just on the committee, I was going to bring this up with Tom Korski as well when he joins us after the news. The fact that the New Democrats do not have official party status really hampers them, because they technically shouldn't be able to even participate in the committees. So
that's right. Yeah, they're not a
So
party.
that's another big blow for them. But look, we'll stop here, because he was also asked about Pierre Poilievre and what obstacles he might put up if Pierre Poilievre were to want to run in a by-election, if another Conservative MP stepped down so Poilievre could get a seat in the House. And Poilievre, Mr. Carney, Prime Minister Carney, said, I'm not going to play any games, and basically clear a path. So we'll talk about that when we come back, and more about Mr. Poilievre's future after the election. I wanted to ask you about Pierre Poilievre's need of many favors, because he needs an MP to step down so he can run in a by-election. I'm sure he would like to keep living at Stornoway. He needs the Prime Minister to call an early by-election and then not run a candidate in that race, as is tradition, but not a rule. It's a kind of a tradition. That's a lot of favors to ask. There's been some debate in political circles about what path Mark Carney should take. It's been argued, for example, that he should grant Poilievre an early election and not run a candidate in a by-election against him, because it would show he's not a petty person and that he has more important things to worry about than Conservative turmoil. Trump being the big one, of course. So he was asked about that today. Here's the Prime Minister.
If it's the decision of him and the Conservative Party to trigger, if I can put it that way, a by-election, I will ensure that it happens as soon as possible. Okay. No games, nothing, straight.
No games, no nothing, straight. What do you think about that, Barry?
Well, very gracious of him. I think it's an important inflection point. He's trying to demonstrate that out of the gate, that we're going to be different in our tone. We're going to not be so nasty. We're going to restore some civility to Parliament. wow, it's quite a step. I mean, he just spent a couple of months there accusing basically of criminality. He's been accused of greed and wholesale selling out Canada. He's had everything under the sun thrown at him by Mr. Poilievre. And here, if Minister Carney turns around and gives him this, what a golden gift this is. A safe Tory riding. We won't. Now, he hasn't, by the way, a little caveat, he hasn't said, are we going to run a candidate or not?
No. The answer was kind of incomplete there on that.
That's correct.
But if he means but if he means no game straight, then the tradition would be the easiest path possible back to the House.
Yeah. Well, this is a question mark in my mind because, it wouldn't be wrong if Canadians heard him say, you know what, just like all the rest of us, you have to earn your way back into Parliament. And I'm going to move that quickly. I'm not going to wait 6 months like I could do. I'm going to move that up rapidly. That is a real benefit. And, if we run a candidate, well, people deserve to be represented in their views. So, he could do that. Maybe he won't, but he could do that. I think it's a really important test. And what's Mr. Poilievre going to do in return? We haven't heard that yet.
Well, this is just breaking now. The Conservative Party has just issued a news release as we are on the air. Damien Currick, Conservative MP for Battle River Crowfoot, Alberta, announced the following statement. He will resign his seat and allow Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre to run in a forthcoming by-election.
There you go.
So the wheels are in motion on that by the looks of things, Barry.
Yeah, well, that's a very solid.
That may be one of the safest Conservative ridings in the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why bother putting a candidate up? I guess it probably forecloses that. Doesn't need to do that. He also gets to own the graciousness thing. So wow, that is significant. If he tried one near Ottawa, you don't quite know what would happen. So that's a much safer basis. The Conservatives are helping him out on that. So it's just a question of what he does with it. Is he going to, do all the things that were done before, withhold Parliament from House of Commons moving forward with their business, all kinds of, you can end up controlling the media agenda by controlling parliamentary committees. So it's very important that he kind of sort his way through this. I don't think he should just be satisfied with, I got my 168 and move forward. I think you will see action on his part, and I'm just predicting this, in some way to cross the finish line with 172. It matters.
I don't have the election results in front of me right now from the most recent election, but in 2021, the Conservatives carried that riding with 72% of the vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's close to a done deal in Canadian political terms. Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to wrap it up there. We'll let you get back to work in Calgary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye, Barry. Yeah. Wow. What a busy day that was with Barry McLoughlin. From TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants, Tom Korski is just ahead from Blacklock's Reporter, one of our weekly contributors here as well. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Post-election week, Tom Korski back with us, managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. Great to hear from you again. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rob.
So let's talk a little bit, building on our conversation with Barry McLoughlin from TLC. The outcome of the election, the fact that it's a minority and how it can affect and impact the functioning of Parliament committees, these sorts of things. Barry was pointing out the fact that it's a minority government. Maybe you can confirm this for us. That will mean that the opposition parties will have the majorities on the committees. Is that right, Tom?
It typically means that. What
the
problem had been in the past, and it was a minor problem, but it did happen from time to time, you Democrats would cast a vote with the Liberals. And that won't happen now because they don't get any committee assignments. So they're, aside from the committees that are already chaired by the opposition, and these are hell-raising committees like public accounts, they can cause no end of trouble for a cabinet.
Yeah.
The Liberals are looking at however long this Parliament lasts, Rob, this is going to get very hot and unpleasant.
Yeah, public accounts. Ethics was another hot one in the last Parliament.
Committee.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
the Government Operations Committee single-handedly shut down an entire federal agency, Sustainable Development Technology Canada. You and I discussed that they were the
That's
famous
right.
boys with 186 conflicts of interest. Shut it down. That's what they did.
Yeah. So the fact that the NDP no longer has official party status means they won't be allowed to even be members of committees and get to ask questions at committees?
You get no committee assignments, and you have to queue up in question period. Maybe you can get an ironic question every couple of weeks or so, but the committee work is crucial. In a minority parliament in particular, it's committees that subpoena the witnesses. It's committees that compel the documents. They inspired, in 2 cases I know of, police investigations of federal contractors. It's no joke, and the last prime minister was driven to distraction by it. I mean, those committees pretty much froze Parliament from last September.
And we hear the bill is sent off to committee stage, so they propose amendments to legislation as well. So the NDP will have no input on that, which is why we know they're lobbying the Liberals hard to lower the threshold for official party status. What do they have? 7 seats, need 12, right?
Correct. I don't think that's ever going to happen. That is so obviously self-serving. You know, if you don't have the confidence of your electors, why should you have the confidence of the Parliament? Francois Blanchette, the Bloc leader, made this point this week. Very candid comments for any reporter who chose to pay attention. He said, this is very fragile. We're going to be here for about a year. No more games, because the voters have the say. You can do whatever you want in your secret caucus meetings. Look what happened to the NDP.
Yep. No research budget, right?
No research
because
budget.
All of these these NDP MPs that are there, they're basically considered to be independents. Like they're not a party. And as for questions, very limited.
Absolutely. No,
time for question period.
You'll full time with constituency matters, widows' pensions, and such. That's exactly right, which is important work, but it's not going to make you famous. I'll tell you about those committees. It was because of vigorous and earnest work by hard-working MPs and committees that capital gains increase died, that there was a bill to censor legal internet content. It died in committee. Those committees caused Cabinet a lot of grief. That's why Carney wanted a majority, because then it's smooth sailing, and he didn't get it.
So we have some late-breaking developments here, just dealing with the aftermath of the election. Battle River Crowfoot MP Damien Kirk has announced that he is going to resign, Tom, so that the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, can run in a by-election. That I just looked up the 2025 election result for that riding. It has to be the safest Conservative riding in the country. This is a longtime MP who just won this with 82% of the vote on Monday night.
Safest. There's one in Saskatchewan that gets 85%, Souris Moose Mountain. Battle River Crowfoot. Kirk has been, by the way, pretty hardworking, earnest MP in committee work. We've spoken to him many times. I can tell you that in that riding, this is one of my favorite stats of all time. When he was first elected 6 years ago, MP Kirk went into a hamlet called Gilt Edge. This is South Central Alberta. He's from Camrose. I've been to Camrose lots of times. Little town called Gilt Edge, where there were 5 candidates on the ballot, and MP Kirk got 99.6% of the vote.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that exists in any other democracy on planet Earth.
So a betting person might want to put their money on Poilievre then in a by-election.
It's looking pretty solid.
Now, Mr. Carney, let's cue up that audio again. Was asked because there is a tradition: if a leader is seeking a seat in the House, a party leader seeking a seat in the House, then the government should try and clear the path for that leader. There were some questions whether the Liberals would be so gracious to do that for Mr. Poilievre after a fairly bruising campaign. This was the Prime Minister just moments ago.
If it's the decision of him and the Conservative Party to trigger, if I can put it that way, a by-election, I will ensure that it happens as soon as possible. Okay. No games, nothing, straight.
No games, no nothing, straight. You kind of surprised to hear that?
He could do that in 10 minutes then. He can do that this afternoon. But am I surprised? No, because Poilievre's going to get back in the House anyhow. And I have to say, the Conservatives, their critics would say it's due to much experience in opposition. The Conservatives have an extremely strong caucus when it comes to opposition members. I could name names, Rob. There are MPs from right across the country in that caucus who make cabinet ministers weep. They will make grown men break down in tears. Yeah. They are that effective in opposition.
But they lost Rick Perkins, though, from Halifax, kind of Halifax, the western part of the regional municipality of Halifax, down to Yarmouth.
Committee, only riding that didn't have a New Democrat.
That's right. Yeah, that really doomed his chances in that riding. Okay, when we come back, it's just an incredible story about an access to information request that Blacklock's reporter made. You won't believe the bill for it when we come back. Blacklock's made an access to information request about a strike at a local electricity utility, a municipal electricity utility. Hydro Ottawa, which is 100% owned by the taxpayers of the city of Ottawa. I remember that strike. It was a couple of years ago. Lasted about 3 months. You wanted to know some things about it. What happened next?
Well, what an interesting question, Rob. They gave us a bill totaling $670,000 and said drop dead. And included in that charge was a claim for over $500,000. This was my favorite part. Preparation time. They were going to bill over $500,000 preparation time. That meant censoring all their records. They were going to charge you $500,000 for blacking out the memos and the emails. We appealed to the information commissioner. And the commissioner said, nice try, and knocked the bill down as a 70% pad. They padded the bill by 70%. This is a public utility, as you mentioned, public.
But still, after this 70% reduction, you're still looking at a bill of more than $160,000?
Exactly. It's still six figures. You're asking a public utility about how they conducted themselves through their management on public business. I got to tell you, Rod, what's the takeaway here for people who've never had any dealings with the management of Hydro Ottawa? In my experience, public corporations are the worst, almost always. They have managers who like cigars and brandy, corporate retreats, and expense accounts. They take all the best of the corporate world in the private sector. And they want none of the accountability where if you don't meet your quotas every 90 days, you get fired. That's a little bit harsh. If I said to you, I'm a corporation, you never guess who I am. My managers hire replacement workers when my longtime employees are in a legal strike. I tell my shareholders to drop dead. I never meet my quota. And when some reporter's hanging around the lobby asking for records, I say, hey, sucker, here's a bill for $250,000. Who am I? You'd say, well, this sounds like a bloated capitalist rat. That's got to be Dow Chemical. No, my friend.
No.
That's Hydro Ottawa.
Holy smokes. $160,000. Just to get basic public information about a labor disruption at a public electricity utility.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Electric buses are all the rage. The National Research Council, I mean, big money, Tom. I mean, the government's pouring big money into fleets all across the country for electric buses. Big fans of them in our part of the country. But, all across the country. The National Research Council, though, has been testing them out, testing their feasibility for a number of years. What's the NRC found out about electric buses?
There's some sad news here, Rob. They don't run as well as they do in California. What they discovered, I quote from the National Research Council, when there's 1 to 2 inches of snow on the ground, it appears to drain the battery 15% faster. And if the temperature goes below zero, I hope you're sitting down for this one, the temperature goes below zero, you should really run diesel heaters so that you can get the bus to run on the route for the rest of the day, or else you're looking at a 20 to 25% draining on the battery. It'll never finish the route. This is the National Research Council doing follow-up on a program that was already announced with billions in committed funding, $2.8 billion committed by the former infrastructure minister, Kathy McKenna, to electrify bus fleets. What are they saying? It's going to cost a fortune. And by the way, for every one diesel bus you have that I know, it's incredible, they can drive through the snow and the cold, you're going to need at least a couple of electrics. They're that unreliable.
Well, okay. So you've been digging into how some of the fringe parties did on election night. How did the commies do in the election? The commies making any progress in Canada?
Well, their popular vote went up 15%, Rob. So
really? Oh
the problem is it's 5,400 ballots right across the country.
Okay.
But how many ballots were cast? What was it, over 20 million? They got 5,419 Communist Party. By the way, the platform was very extensive. They proposed a 100% capital gains tax. So pretty much.
100%? Is that all?
Pretty much everything.
We'll just take it all. Right. Okay. So the Rhinos won about 7,400 votes. The Libertarians about 6,000 votes. The Marijuana Party only 130 votes.
What are they still sticking around for? I mean, that's called the
all their
Party.
supporters were on the couch, playing video games and eating munchies. I guess. All right. Okay, comrade, we'll have to wrap it up there for this week. We'll speak next week. Bye-bye. Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. I'm Rob Snow here with David Smith on a Friday, another week that just flew by because, of course, it was the election week. David, it's just been nonstop election news.
Was that this week? It was all one week.
Yeah, it was this week. Oh, wow. It's all a blur, isn't it? Yeah. If you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, now you know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. You can listen live. You can listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app, spelled Seekr. It has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And now you know the Rob Snow is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And in addition to all the election news, late night Monday, and then all the reaction on Tuesday, we've had to contend with the NHL playoffs.
Yes,
David.
Yeah,
and a lot of Canadian teams that have been involved in the NHL playoffs, so it's been good. Although the Canadian teams are starting to drop. Montreal was eliminated by the Washington Capitals in 5 games, and our beloved Ottawa Senators, David, their season came to an end last night, losing once more the Battle of Ontario against the hated Toronto Maple Leafs. It's my opinion. I know some people may not share it.
Why did it have to be the Leafs?
I hate losing to the Leafs. I hate losing to the Leafs. But it was a good series. And the Senators are a young team, and they made a series out of it after falling down 3 games to none. Big hole to dig out of, but they managed to get it to 6 and then lost last night 4-2 with the 4th goal being into an empty net. So that's it. So now the Leafs move on and they'll play the Florida Panthers, which is going to be a battle of the Titans. The Oilers defeated the Kings last night, so the Oilers are on to the second round. And the Canadian team in action tonight, the Winnipeg Jets, are in tough against the St. Louis Blues, but the Jets are up in that series 3-2 and looking to close things out tonight. And that is 8 p.m. Eastern time face-off for that one tonight on Sportsnet. Big weekend, David. One of the great sporting events in the world happens, yes, this weekend. Look what you did there. It's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports, Dave.
It sure is. I love it.
It's Derby weekend of the Kentucky Derby 2025. The Run for the Roses is on Saturday. And post time for people who want to tune in, because, the coverage goes on for hours, and the race is 2 minutes, but the coverage is hours and hours and hours and hours, profiling all of these horses. Post time is 6:57 Eastern. 6:57 Eastern. They will actually, put the horses in the gate, and they'll be off, and it will be over sometime around 6:59 Eastern. So it's kind of like blink and you will miss it. But very interesting. The names. What do I know about horse racing? I don't know much about horse racing. I usually just pick a name and go with it. So there are two in the race that just jump out at me. One is, and the favorite, 3-1 right now, is Journalism.
Oh, Journalism. That's the
Journalism is the favorite in the horse race. Journalism is the favorite for once, David.
Wow. It's a rare win for Journalism.
Right. It could be a rare win for Journalism. And the other one at 5-1 odds, Sovereignty.
Oh, well, isn't that appropriate? Isn't that appropriate?
Like, how many times have you heard that one? Sovereignty. So, yeah. So, yes, enjoy Derby weekend, everyone. Why don't you take Journalism? You can have the front runner. You take Journalism. I'll take Sovereignty, and we'll see come Monday how everything turned out in the run for the roses in the first leg of the Triple Crown of thoroughbred horse racing. The Friday free-for-all Talkback hour is coming up right after the news. If you want to get in line right now, 1-833-668-2577. Open line, open topic today. We'll follow your lead here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. The phone lines are open right now for the Friday free-for-all. Our favorite day of the week around here because we don't come up with the topics. We have been doing that all week. So today, it is your turn. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that has been in the news, we can do that. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, we're more than happy to follow your lead today. Whatever it happens to be, we are standing by and we are all ears. 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. Save that number in your phone. Put us on speed dial. 1-833-668-2577. 2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that you are a first-time caller and we'll make your call a priority. Every single line is available right now. I mean, the election was the story of the week. It was the story to start the week. It was the story to end the week. It's the story today. The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, had his first news conference today in Ottawa. He did an interview with the BBC right after the election. That was his first post-election interview. I know that didn't go over very well with some members of the press gallery in Ottawa who were saying, hey, what about us? But he took a lot of questions today. You've now heard some of what he had to say about what he sees as priorities for his government. So the election was on Monday. We know the outcome, Liberal minority government, pretty stable one at that. And the Liberals should have no issues governing for the next few years, I would imagine. And the Conservatives lost their fourth election in a row, but did better than some of the pollsters suggested they would do. They did particularly well in Ontario, picked up seats, grew the popular vote, managed to get in excess of 40% of the vote, which is traditionally the magic number for a majority government, but they needed to do better than that, and they didn't, and that's just a fact. And to add insult to injury for the Conservatives, the leader, Pierre Poilievre, got crushed in his own riding and failed to win a seat. And for now, and it would appear only for now, he is on the outside looking in. And so there are lots of questions, finger pointing about what went wrong and whether Poilievre deserves a second chance. So we can get into all of that if you want to. Today, Prime Minister Mark Carney, and we have the audio here, Prime Minister Mark Carney was asked if Pierre Poilievre could find a Conservative MP to step aside, triggering a by-election. Would you call that by-election early? Would you call it soon? And this is what Prime Minister Carney had to say about that.
If it's the decision of him and the Conservative Party to trigger, if I can put it that way, a by-election, I will ensure that it happens as soon as possible. No games, nothing, straight.
No games, nothing, straight, and I will call it as soon as possible. And Mark Carney had barely gotten the words out of his mouth when the Conservative Party released a statement, and lo and behold, a Conservative MP is going to step down, and Poilievre can run in an Alberta riding in a by-election. And I mean, if it's not the safest Conservative seat in the country, it has to be one of the safest Conservative seats in the country. Battle River Crowfoot, 81.8% of the vote. The Conservative carried that with 81.8% of the vote, but Damien Currick, who is the Conservative MP-elect for that riding, says, I'll take it for the team. I'll step down, and Poilievre can run in my riding. Maybe you have something to say about that. One of the big stories in the aftermath of the election campaign, Western Canada, anger in the West, separation. There were lots of stories in the news about that this week. We talked about it for a few hours on Wednesday. Took a lot of calls about it. From people from Alberta were calling about that, on both sides of the issue, but we took calls from other parts of the country as well. Southern Ontario, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, people weighing in, sharing their thoughts on the prospect of Alberta, maybe even Saskatchewan as well, holding a referendum on separation. It's a real thing. I think that's what we all have to understand. It's a real thing. And as the week goes on, it looks like it might be just a matter of when there's a referendum in Alberta. It's not a question of if there's going to be a referendum in Alberta. The way things are going, the number of people who are signing online pledges and saying, yes, I will sign a petition. I want a referendum. I mean, there's a lot of names. And the new threshold, I believe, if memory serves, if a new bill passes through the legislature in Alberta, all they have to do is collect 170,000 names, 177,000, I believe. Names on paper. I don't think they're going to, by the sounds of it, I don't think they're going to have too many problems getting that many names. And Premier Smith seems to be saying, let's see what the people do. Let's see what the people say, and we'll take it from there. Premier Scott Moe in Saskatchewan said yesterday, if people want to start the process in that province, he won't stand in their way. He didn't say he would like to see an independent Saskatchewan, just that if the process moves forward, then the process moves forward. And meantime, you have people like Jason Kenney, the former premier of Alberta, saying these things are all just a scam by grifters, and it's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. And it seems to me he's kind of setting himself up to be a major voice in what I would call, I guess, the Federalist campaign, if you were to use the language of the Quebec experience. But if you want to jump back into that issue today, you go for it. And the King is coming to Canada. Mark Carney, Prime Minister Carney, confirmed that today. King Charles will open the next Parliament on the 27th of May. He will read the speech from the throne. What do you think of that? It's interesting, isn't it? The rationale behind it. Sending a signal to the Trump administration about Canada's sovereignty, that we're our own country with our own history, and part of our history includes the crown. Now, that is, as time goes on, you watch, it's going to prompt all kinds of debate again about the need for the crown in Canada. And it will be the monarchists against the so-called Republicans again, and people who view the crown as antiquated, a sign of a colonial past, and a giant waste of money. But feel free to comment on that too, or anything else that happens to be on your mind. It is a free-for-all. After all, that's how we roll around here on a Friday. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback, 1-833-668-2577. Let's get going here. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all Talkback, so it's old school. Call-in radio, open line, open topic. Bill in Kitchener. Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Hello, Bill. How are you, Bill?
Very good. Very good.
Yes, and first I'd like to say I really do appreciate your old-style conservative way of approaching these issues. The way you've dealt with a lot of people coming up with a lot of different how I can put it, less than normal ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try to roll with it.
I called the last time I called. I talked about the fact that I thought that perhaps both parties would have something to be happy about. I'm not happy about, but that would actually do better than the polls were saying, and that is that turn out because the Liberals win, but they get a minority. The Conservatives do better than they have in the past, but they don't do as well as they had thought they were earlier in the year. But that's so there was disappointment, but also reasons to feel that they had accomplished something on both sides.
Oh, sure. I mean, it depends where you want to look at it, I guess, on the timeline, right? If you look at it, say, go back a year ago, the Conservatives have a big lead in the polls, and now here they are, they've lost their fourth election in a row. You have to be disappointed with that, and your leader loses in his own riding. You have to be disappointed with that, and it's the Liberals win their fourth election in a row. You have to be disappointed with that. But if you look at what they were saying with a week to go in the election, it was going to be a Liberal majority government, and it's not. It's a Liberal minority government. And you gain seats in Ontario, and you do pretty well in parts of Atlantic Canada. You do well in British Columbia, and you've put in your best performance since Mulrooney in 1988. And there's reasons to be happy. And if you're the Liberals and you look back where you were 6 months ago when you were dead and buried, today you're still the government. So you're happy, but you didn't get a majority.
As I was looking through, I was sort of a little concerned because I thought, wow, we could wind up with the Bloc Québécois being the real power makers here, the key makers because of their situation. And, of course, Mark Carney could either now, he came so close to majority, he could either, as people are saying, count on some conservatives who might be more inclined to support him, or the Liberal or the New Democrats if they come to their senses and decide they want to do something, for the benefit of all Canada. But the real thing that hits me is that I was sort of thinking that Mr. Carney was going to be like Paul Martin on his better days, but actually, when you think of the history, Mr. Carney, as somebody with a very strong minority government, could wind up being somebody more like Lester Pearson, who I think both had two minority governments back in the 1960s.
Yeah, he never won a majority.
He never won a majority, but he certainly did a lot of good for Canada, and he worked
got a lot
with other
done.
parties and did things and got a lot done. And if that becomes the template for Mr. Carney, and I'm sure that he understands history and can look back and see that might be the way he could go, that could be to everybody's benefit in Canada. And I say it as a Canadian resident, American citizen. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that Carney succeeds, and I'm hoping he does the right thing, especially in his relations with Mr. Volatile south of the border.
Yeah, and they'll meet on Tuesday. That was confirmed today. Bill, you've got us off to a good start here. Bill, thank you for your call. Good to hear from you. To Halifax, Eric is in Halifax. Hello, Eric.
Hey, how you doing? Good evening, Rob.
I'm good. Well, if you called to talk about sports, of course I'm disappointed because my hockey team is out of the playoffs. But
wait, now your hockey team. You told me you were going for Toronto.
No. I hate Toronto. I'm cheering. I'm an Ottawa Senators fan. Yeah.
Anyway, they're not going to have a 3-0 start when they play Florida, so you could rest on your morals there that you won't be sad when they play Florida. But you're right up my alley with the races. Now I don't know what the deal is, and I'll tell you, those two horses that you came up with, 5-1 and 3-1 are damn good odds at any racetrack. I don't care who the horses are. They could have only 2 legs or no legs, but 5-1 and 3-1 are damn good bets. The only thing that they have to watch out for is horses coming from the number 4 position and the number 5 position. And don't pass up on any Wayne Lucas horses or Bob Baffert's horses. because those two guys are pioneers of thoroughbred racing, and they always seem to be there when push comes to shove. I don't know how you feel all about that, but
well, I don't know much about it. I watch, maybe 2-3 horse races a year, thoroughbred horse races a year, and then I usually go to Prince Edward Island once a year and watch some harness racing. But that's about the extent of my horse racing knowledge. But
I like to be a fly on the wall, and when Carney meets up with Trump, I wonder if Trump is going to give him the gears like he did to Selesky. You think that might happen?
Well, he was asked about that, and we can play the audio of that when we come back. He kind of shrugged that off when he was asked about it, about being ambushed the way President Zelensky was ambushed. But Eric, look, have a good weekend. We've got to run. It's great to hear from you in Halifax today. Friday Free for All Talkback, so we're wide open today. Leighton in Alberta. Hello, Leighton. Am I saying that right?
Hello, Rob.
Yeah. Hi, Leighton.
Hello, Rob.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
I heard that the MP from Alberta stepped down.
Yep.
To give Poilievre a seat.
That's right. Battle River Crowfoot.
Yeah, and I heard Mr. Carney saying that he wasn't going to have any trouble calling a by-election as soon as possible.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wish we had people like Mr. Carney running the province here.
Okay. What's your problem with the people who are running the province now?
Well, we have a premier who refuses to call a by-election to let the leader of the opposition run.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, Nenshi, yeah, right.
Yeah. It's just too bad Smith isn't as decent as Carney is.
Okay.
Yeah. And during election campaigns, I heard a lot conservatives saying we need change.
Yes.
And when I looked across at the conservatives, it looked a lot like the same bunch that were there in 2015.
Okay. Well, some of them were around in 2015. There are a lot of new faces there, though. There are a lot of new faces.
Harper's gone, O'Toole's gone, and Ambrose is gone.
That's right.
But during the election campaign, it was pretty much the same crowd.
Okay.
Was it not?
Well, there are a lot of other, younger conservative MPs, and this is one of the knocks against Poilievre, that it's all about Poilievre, right? It's so leader-centric that, there are talented people on the conservative side of the House. It's just, when do you ever hear from them? Only when Poilievre is not around to say something. Melissa Lantsman is really good, and she's from the GTA, a woman.
Yeah.
She's gay. She's gay married.
Oh, yes.
But they've got a young guy, Chambers. They've got a guy, Adam Chambers, who was a high-ranking executive on Bay Street. He's a very, very young man. Worked for Jim Flaherty. Learned all about the Department of Finance and budgets from Jim Flaherty, the late finance minister. Smart as a whip, but when do you ever hear from that guy? Never.
Well, why don't we hear? Why don't we hear from him? That's what I.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah,
I'm sure as they lick their wounds over this election campaign and think about what worked and what didn't work, maybe that's one of the things that didn't work so well.
Afraid to say anything. I think they're afraid of Poilievre.
Well, he's the leader. He's the boss.
Yeah. But boy,
right?
It's hard.
He calls the shots.
When you only have one voice, it's really hard.
Right. Okay, but you thought it was a kind of the same old conservative team. You didn't. They were offering change, but you didn't see a lot of change on offer there. Okay, fair enough. That's a fair criticism, Leighton. Thanks for your call in Alberta today. Good to hear from you. Friday Free for All Talkback. The news is next on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kyle in Listowel is up next here on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. What's on your mind today?
I changed my mind. I'm staying in Canada. Norma called the other day. Norma called the other day and said I gotta be a little more positive and stuff. So you know what, Rob? You guys changed my mind. You know what? I think I'm just gonna move to Alberta instead.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But no, I mean, and I gotta say quickly before I let you go. Sorry about your Ottawa Senators. My Montreal Canadiens. We didn't make it past either against the Washington Capitals. But I don't think Toronto has a hope in heck that they're going to go against Paul Maurice and those Florida Panthers. That team is built for the playoffs, and they're physical and they play very well. And Paul Maurice, I'm telling you, is a fantastic coach, and they're not going to get on. And it's the same thing with Carolina. I think they're a good team, but I think that Washington they got Ovechkin, and again they play that kind of that old school physicality type of game. So I think that the Toronto game is going to be done in 5 games, 4 maybe. For Florida for sure. I would say the Washington Carolina thing is going to be 7 games because Carolina is also a very good team. So anyways, but yeah.
Well, I would say, I watched some of the Habs games down the stretch, and then I watched them in the playoffs. I mean, they played really good the last, say, 25 games of the season just to get into the playoffs. The Montreal Canadiens, like they snuck in there as the final wild card spot in the East. And there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Habs fan. You've got a good goaltender in Montembeault, who got hurt in the series. You've got, who do you have? Nick Suzuki. You've got that defenseman, Hudson, I think is his name, who set a rookie record for most assists in an NHL season. You've got that new Russian kid. You've got Caulfield. You got that Russian, what's his name? Demidov that they just got. I mean, he looked. All these kids
Anderson
are just young.
Has always been good for us. Anderson's always been good for us as well. Young team.
So,
yep. I think there's going to be future for sure. But I'm not going to sound like a Toronto Maple Leafs fan saying, every year we're going to win the playoffs and every year we're going to win the Stanley Cup. We just take it one season at a time, my friend. If we improve, we improve. If we don't, we move on and we hope for the next season, But we're not one of these fans that say, oh, yeah, this is our year. We're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. We're going to win the Stanley Cup next year. We're going to win the Stanley Cup in 2150.
So you're saying don't start the parade down Yonge Street just yet, Toronto, is what you're saying, right?
I mean, absolutely not. Nope, that's for sure. Anyways, thanks.
Okay.
Have a good weekend. And
all right. Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye. And let's go to Ernie is in Kitchener today as well. Hello, Ernie.
Hey, Rob, I like you too much to talk about the game tomorrow, but Kyle's talking nonsense. At least they're going to do okay. So I'm not
okay. All right.
too worried about that.
Okay. I'm over it. I'm looking for the CFL season to start now. That's my next thing. So, yeah. Okay.
That's hard for me to watch. But as far as, Rob, when you just brought up like the 4 losses, I was thinking, I know what the Buffalo Bills felt like. You know what I mean? This is 4 straight. I'm just like, man, that just clicked in my head when you said that. I'm like, oh man, this is what they went through. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even mind the Bills too much, but I definitely had that sentiment, that feeling there. A couple points I just want to make and maybe see what you think is I'm trying to be extremely optimistic. I have a lot of hope hearing from my Alberta callers that are calling in, and I think that they will be able to at least hopefully keep the government a bit accountable with their threats and what they're doing. And I think we'll find out pretty early whether he's going to work with them or he's not. And in that case, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm one of you. I would love to move there, but I'm in full support of you guys doing what you're doing. And Tom Korski is someone that I follow a lot. I really like his insight. And just this recession talk of June and everything else here, I'm like, Carney, I'm going to please, just like even what Bill said there, I want to see some optimism, try to unite us. The interprovincial trade, if you can break that down, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You can win some hearts, or not some hearts here, but you can at least get some positive reviews from a hardcore conservative like me. But reality, my wife says, not a chance. We've seen his book. We know what his agenda is. And I'm just like, okay, well, with the minority government, hopefully, and I know you can still get your majority, give me some optimism to believe in this country again, please.
Right. Okay. What do you think about the news today that a Conservative MP in a very, very safe riding in Alberta is going to step aside and Poilievre can run in a by-election there?
I think there's plenty of people that really, like, I truly support Pierre. I think there's no stronger leader than what we have. And I see it again, just like what you said with the Harper thing. He lost it. Yeah, Harper didn't lose his seat when he went back and won against Paul Martin. But you got to admit, though, too, they're talking about the fishiness of Pierre's riding, what happened there, too. But when you look, if you're saying, like, and I hear liberals calling in about the, no, I'm just talking about the ballot stuff. Nothing like I'm not going too crazy down the dark road there. But I mean the hypocrisy too. Carney kicked out a guy of his party to gain his seat. So if you look at how he gained his seat, he was running in the leadership race and he gave him the boot. So I mean, shouldn't we have been talking about that a bit more if now the liberals want to criticize Pierre for doing this? And as far as him being our leader, like, I'll take all that criticism all day long. I think Pierre's the right guy and he's going to lead us back to victory.
You think so? Okay. You still have faith in that?
I 100% do.
Okay. All right, Ernie. Thanks, you. Rob. Good luck to your Leafs. They're in tough in the second round for sure. Okay, 1-833-668-2577. Two lines available there. It's the Friday free-for-all talkback. We will stop here. Back to Alberta we go. Tom is up next on the Friday free-for-all talkback. What's on your mind today? Tom, good to hear from you.
Just give me a second. I'm just shutting the tractor off. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm out rolling a hayfield that's been in our family for 128 years.
Wow.
In Alberta. My grandfather settled on the place I live on in 1897 or 96, we're not certain. In 1900, he got title for it. I'm just giving you a little history so you know who I am. Anyway, my grandchildren are now fifth generation on this property. It was territories originally, and then it became Alberta. When I listen to all this talk about separation,
yes,
it disturbs me because I think I've watched separation in other things, in families and in governments and in countries, and it always seems to me that things get weaker, not stronger with separation.
Okay.
And I did a little research, and I look at the population of the western provinces, and I had a thought, if we combine that strength of that many people, and we supported one government instead of 3 or 4, depending on whether British Columbia would join us, I think we could build a province with the voting strength of Eastern Canada.
I see.
I think we could build a bunch of efficiencies in government.
Okay.
You know, why do 5 million people have to pay for 4 governments? Why can't we pay for one? Similar to what Quebec or Ontario do. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I think this is the worst time in history that we look at separating from Canada.
Okay.
I think we should unify. We should put a referendum out in Western Canada and see if there's other people that maybe think that way. And maybe instead of having Eby and Smith and Scott Moe and the Premier of Manitoba, maybe we should give one Premier to represent us.
Okay.
And you know, call it the Western Canada province. I'm sure somebody.
Maybe you call it Canada. Yeah, you have like a mega province. Maybe you call it, Canada West or something. I don't know. What would you call it? Right.
Canada West. But if you take a look at the numbers, our voting power would then pretty much represent what Ontario, not quite, but would be Quebec size. And I think we wouldn't have to watch elections over before we go to the count continually.
Right. Okay.
And I think all of a sudden, I think Western Canada people are pretty light thinking. I think we could elect a premier. And, the saving to the people of Canada would be, we don't need 4 provincial governments to represent that many people. One premier, Doug Ford, represents how many people in Ontario?
14 million, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
14 million.
I think if we got together, we'd be, maybe 6 or 7, depending. You'd have to get the buy-in of British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And all of a sudden, unification versus separation maybe it'd be a win-win-win.
Well, it's not the craziest thing I've heard. They've talked about this in the context of the Atlantic provinces, of course, that maybe there should be some amalgam of the Atlantic provinces. Why do you need 4 Atlantic provinces? Right?
I don't know.
I don't know where, but think about think about the spats that could occur. What would be the capital? Would Vancouver be the capital, or would Calgary be the capital, or Regina, or right?
No, really.
Well, these are things you would have to figure out, though. These are things you would have to figure out.
Yeah, of course. And why couldn't it be either? Calgary, Edmonton's our capital right now. Maybe it could still be out Edmonton or Vancouver or any other of the provinces.
Or Victoria yeah.
But it's a numbers thing. All of a sudden, you have some Western Canada power in voting.
Influence. Yeah. Okay.
And to close it out, a smart friend of mine, I'm not very smart at all, but I have a friend that has always told me, when you get into committee management, you really lose ground because a lot of good thinking people kind of struggle with wanting to get their idea forward. So instead of 4 premiers arguing with a premier or a prime minister from Eastern Canada, you might have one person. Put Daniel Smith in the cabinet. Put Scott Moe, who I respect and admire. I think he's brilliant. If he's leading it, he can take these other voted officials and put them in their strong place, because I don't think they're all really good at representing 1 million or 1.5 million people. I think you need the support of 5 or 6 million people, and then you can go to
Ottawa make a difference and to have influence. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not the craziest thing I've heard today, Tom. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm glad I'm not getting
really
crazy.
Interesting.
Thanks, love your show.
Thank you so much. I love your call. Why don't we stop here? Because Steve, if I bring you on now, you'd only have about 30 seconds. I want to give you more time than that. Stephen, thank you for waiting. Stephen, you're on the air on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Go ahead.
So I'm a retired internet technician for a major internet provider for Alberta and BC. I want to give some tips for people for the internet.
Okay.
Regards to Wi-Fi, there's some great information basically from your internet service provider and on YouTube about how to get the best performance, but you also have to realize that there are restrictions on how the technology works on there. One of the reasons why you might have to call back in is because the internet technician is not checking the core issues. So whenever I was talking to a customer, whether it be fiber or copper, I'd always do a test on the copper or fiber, because if you don't get the foundation right, then the customer has to call back in on there.
Okay.
So, and when everything's working perfectly, you want to take pictures. So take pictures of all the physical connections.
Right.
And make sure that if it's not working, you make sure it's in the right spot. It's in there nice and firm. But more than anything is unplug the power to your modem every 90 days for about roughly 2 minutes. That gets you the best performance out of your modem. Now, sometimes the modem you get from your internet service provider is not maybe the best one for you. Sometimes you have to go out and buy your own. Okay.
Right. Okay.
And if you've got your own, they can't really test it because it didn't come from your internet service provider.
Right. They would they'd rather you have technology that they're familiar with. I guess you'd call it like OEM technology or something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you can they can access it remotely.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
Otherwise they can't. The other nice thing is about is that some of the companies have a way where they can actually use the camera on your cell phone to see what's sort of going on. And one of the things that you want to do is you don't want to have your modem sitting right on the floor. You want to get it up a little bit higher, because the Wi-Fi signal will be absorbed into the floor itself.
Oh, really? Okay. That's good advice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of calls in. Some of it might be something you just have to live with. and sometimes it is an actual issue. But another thing you can also do is you can always change the Wi-Fi channel yourself if there's a Wi-Fi issue to maybe try a different channel that has maybe some better reception on it.
Okay.
You can just go into the settings for your modem at any time, because there's the what's called the IP address for the modem, and you just get in there.
Yes.
Okay, and as well as someone says, well, I don't know my Wi-Fi password. Well, typically it's on the side of your modem.
It's usually on the side or the bottom of the modem or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Look, we're a little tight on time, Stephen. I thank you, though. I thank you. We don't have time to go through, troubleshooting everything having to do with somebody's home network, but I really appreciate your call. Some handy tips there. I want to fit in Eric here in Nova Scotia just before the top hour news. Hi, Eric. You're on the air, sir.
Hi.
Friday Free for All.
Hi, Rob. How you doing? You know what I found
Eric,
interesting?
how are you?
I'm good, bud. What I found interesting about the election is Nova Scotia provincially is the majority conservative.
PC.
A massive
Sure,
conservative. Yeah. And then, the same with Ontario. Ford got a majority.
Yeah.
And
PC,
I found it curious that the MLAs in Nova Scotia that are conservative weren't out helping their counterparts that were running for the federal election. And I couldn't help but think two things. One, does the provincial conservatives have a consensus of what conservatism is, and is it the same ideals as that the federal conservatives has? And,
not the people around Polyev. They don't view, if I could just be quite frank, I don't even think like Jenny Byrne would be the power broker, like kindred spirit partner in crime to Pierre Polyev ran his campaign. She doesn't view progressive conservatives as real conservatives. You're not real conservatives.
You're
liberals. You're just liberal light, Yeah,
I follow what you're saying. You know what I mean? I sort of thought that in a sense. The other thing is, one other thing, more kind of negative, the aspirations of, if that's the case, there really is a differentiation in the view of being a conservative, what that means. Does it show that Tim in Nova Scotia and Doug in Ontario have aspirations to take over the federal party?
Well, there's lots of speculation about that. The question is, given what they have said about the way the federal Conservative Party works, would the membership want them? Because the members feel betrayed.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It is our Friday free for all, so it's open line, open topic. Today, we will follow your lead. The election has been a big topic again today because it's been the biggest story of our lives over the last month or so. Let's go to Rob in Ayr, Ontario. Hello, Rob. You're on the air. In Ayr. Are you with me, Rob? Nope, doesn't sound like Rob's there. To Jody in Calgary. Hello, Jody.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, Jody. How are you today?
Pretty sad. I was actually I was going for Ottawa because I really cannot stand the Maple Leafs, and I cannot stand the Maple Leaf fans. Oh my God, they make me so sick to my stomach. I would go for Russia right now if they were playing the Maple Leafs. Like that's how much I.
Oh my gosh.
I just don't like them.
Right. But, are you a Habs fan?
I hope that I hope Edmonton or Winnipeg can do something there. So.
Yeah. Well, they're both looking good. Both up in their series. Well, actually, Edmonton moved on last night, as a matter of fact, right? They're on to the second round, and Winnipeg could move on with a win tonight. Are you a Habs fan? I thought you said you were a Habs fan.
Yeah, I'm a Habs fan, so I was pretty. I wasn't very surprised that they got beat like in 5 games. Just for them to be in the playoffs was a victory for me this year.
That's a victory in and of itself, right? Yeah.
They got a great young team there. I mean, if they can keep all those young players and then in the offseason, maybe grab a couple of free agents, they're going to be a team to reckon with.
Yeah. Boy, the Bell Center is a great place for playoff hockey, though. What an atmosphere, even just to watch it on TV. Like, it's just amazing.
Oh, yes, it is. I'm from New Brunswick, so I have a lot of friends that go there, and they post stuff on Facebook, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But
anything else on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm not looking forward to seeing and hearing Freeland and Melanie Jolie and Stefan Guibault or Stephen Guibault for the next 4 years. I'm really not looking forward to it.
Okay. I don't think the government's going to last 4 years. Now, some people are saying, well, we're going to have an election in a year. I don't think we're going to have an election in a year either. I could see this government lasting, I would say, 2.5 years. This would be my prediction right now. I would say 2.5 years, and then stay tuned. And I think then the Liberals will assess kind of where they stand at that time after 2.5 years, whether they've had a good 2.5 years or a bad 2.5 years. I mean, who knows what the world could look like in 2.5 years from now. And then I think the timing of the next election won't be up to the opposition. I think if the Liberals are somewhat popular and look like they can win, they'll just call the election themselves. That's what I think is going to happen, and go for a majority mandate.
I hope so, and I hope Stephen Guibault decides to move to Alberta, like he's so popular out here. So Okay, thanks, Rob.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. We could talk about the election. I mean, the Liberals. What are they, David? 4 seats shy as of today, right? 4 seats shy of a majority government.
168
right?
as of today. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody has to be the speaker, and they're going to nominate a Liberal to be the speaker. So it's really 5. Now, they don't really need anyone to cross the floor. They should be able to govern without much resistance with that size minority. They do side deals here and there. The Bloc Québécois has already said it's not in the mood to pick a fight. They lost seats on election night, about a dozen seats or so. So the Bloc is they're licking their wounds. And the Bloc will want to see what happens with the next provincial election in Quebec, which is more than a year away. The Quebec election isn't until October of next year. Right now, the Parti Québécois, the separatists, are leading in all the polls. And they're talking about having their own referendum if they win. So things in Quebec, everything in Quebec's on hold right now. And the Bloc they're not in any rush for an election. Elizabeth May, the lone Green Party member to win a seat on election night, has already said, hey, I'd be open to crossing the floor if you make me the Speaker of the House. She's always wanted that job. She told me as much the last time I interviewed her. She said, Rob, it's my dream job is to be the Speaker of the House. I've always wanted to be the Speaker of the House. She also said she would cross the floor if they made her a cabinet minister. So she can be bought. She's always been a fairly reliable ally of the Liberals over the course of her career in Parliament anyway. So whether she turns into a Liberal officially, it's not going to really matter much. I still maintain, and Mr. Carney talked with such great confidence today, as though he had a majority government. Can you play that when he was asked about, are you going to do a deal with the NDP? And how quickly he shot that down today?
Yes.
Mr. Carney, will you be pursuing a formal governing pact of any kind with the NDP?
No. Short answer, no.
And why not?
Why?
Why? Why? Why would he sound so confident given where he is, 5 seats short of a majority government? I'm telling you, they're still working the phones, Dave. They're still working the phones. They're trying to find people who will cross the floor.
Oh, yeah. Even
already found one. Elizabeth May already said, yeah, I'll cross the floor.
Sure.
This is my price. Make me speaker or make me a cabinet minister. It's got to be... Look, an ordinary MP makes $210,000 a year. If you're a cabinet minister, you get a $99,000 raise, Dave. a raise of $99,000, and you get a car allowance worth $2,000 a year, and you get to be a minister of the crown. I mean, if you're a New Democrat, like Don Davies' name keeps coming up, and doesn't that beat toiling away on the opposition benches with a half a dozen of your dipper friends who don't even have official party status, can't be on committees, no staff? They need 5 people. 5 people, and you go to them and say, hey, would you like a $100,000 raise? How difficult can it be? I wouldn't be shocked at all if we're watching the news someday, or we're on the air when there's a breaking news alert. We have found 5 MPs. They're going to join the Liberals. They're going to cross the floor, and we don't need to do deals with the New Democrats because we have a working majority government. We don't have to make any concessions or do any deals with any parties at all. The Liberals are sitting pretty here. As I just told the caller, the Carney government is not going to fall on a matter of confidence anytime soon. Not in a year. I don't even think in 2 years. 2.5 years. That'll be the midway point, really. And then you can start thinking about an election. But the timing of that election is going to be decided by Prime Minister Carney, not anyone else. That's what my own political crystal ball is telling me right now. All right, let's try Ayr, Ontario again for the Friday Free for All Talkback and join Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Rob. How's it going today?
Everything is fine here, sir. Yep. What's on your mind?
That's great. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to talk about the Conservative Party, and specifically, is Pierre Poilievre the guy to move forward in the next election? Well, I voted for him, full disclosure. In fact, our area, Cambridge, flipped from Liberal to Conservative, so I felt very confident. But then things, unraveled in other parts of Ontario, especially the GTA. Even though the surrounding area did quite well. I think with some of the voter bloc, they're talking women and people 55 and older for the reasons why they didn't vote for him. And I do believe, as a former sales and marketing guy, perception is reality. And once you have that perception, it's really hard to change it. You can change your policies, you can do this or that, but I really don't know if he can go to the next step and make it happen. I think he needs a better campaign team, quite frankly, but those are just my thoughts. But I just don't know if he's the guy, and he's got to use other people. Like I saw, when he got into became a Conservative leader, like I was really hoping Jean Charest would get in there. Didn't hear anything about him or from him during the election, so I don't think they utilized all their resources as they could or should have. So,
well, again, as I told a previous caller, when it comes to people
I just got back on, so
oh yeah, that's okay. Well, when it comes to people like Doug Ford, Tim Houston, Jean Charest, the people around Pierre Poilievre, and probably Pierre Poilievre himself, don't view these people as true blue conservatives.
Right.
They view them as progressive conservatives, and they don't think there's even a such thing as progressive conservatives. Like you're either one, or you're either a progressive or you're a conservative, right? They view them as mushy, in the middle, afraid to take a stance, liberal light. Pretending to be conservative in name only.
Yeah, you're right about that. Jean Charest, leader of the federal PCs, and then moving on to be leader of the Liberals in Quebec as a premier. So that
but that's a kind of a different animal in Quebec as well, because the Liberal Party in Quebec was always a mix of Liberals and Conservatives as federalists fighting the separatists, right? So it's kind of a different breed of Liberal there.
You're a smart guy. Can I ask you your opinion on, so what happened in Quebec? If they had a bit more of a breakthrough there, they did okay in Ontario, but Quebec, I think they were held to 10 or 11 seats. And Quebec usually votes one way or the other, so they have their representation. I just thought Conservatives would do a lot better there, but they really didn't, did they?
Yeah, wait, no, they didn't. And this is 2 elections in a row where they even had the endorsement of the Premier of Quebec saying you should elect a Conservative government because it's the Conservatives who are saying they're going to respect provincial jurisdiction, respect our language laws, not challenge a bill like Bill 21, which is the secularity of the state law, which
laws.
is the secular law in Quebec, and yet it just fails to launch because they view it as, in my own opinion, as someone who lives here, they view the Conservative Party as a Western Reform party. That's how they view it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that it's socially, it is socially just out of step with Quebec's social values.
Right. But if you got a guy like Trudeau or Mulroney back in the day, who can relate to Quebec, and honestly, they do want to get representation in federal politics, so they usually go with the winner, in my opinion. And maybe they thought Poilievre wouldn't be able to do it, but
But Mulroney was also from Quebec. Mulroney was also from Quebec, spoke flawless French, spoke French like a Quebecer, spoke Quebecois French, being Baie-Comeau. Okay.
So,
but maybe one of the things that he's really going to have to do is he could take a trick out of the old Pierre Elliott Trudeau playbook, is that you have to find. Pierre Elliott Trudeau had his 3 wise men who were his 3 people in Quebec, and these are the people we need in Quebec. These are going to be our key organizers, our people who really understand the province. I don't know if he's really done that. Jack Layton did that with Tom Mulcair. He found Tom Mulcair, and Tom Mulcair was excellent in that role. So
of course,
Poilievre's got to. Maybe the people that he has in those positions right now.
Yeah, and that came up earlier. He's got to utilize the people behind him, that are with him, in his part of his group, and it can't just be him. There are a lot of good people there, and hopefully some will step up, and maybe some will come back for the next election. Maybe they'll run.
I think right now, even with the developments today, we're going to have to wrap up our conversation there, Rob. Thank you so much for your call today. With the developments today, I have more to say about this. With the developments of the day, with Pierre Poilievre finding a safe Conservative riding to run in rural Alberta, where the Conservative MP just won there with 82% of the vote, with Prime Minister Carney saying, I won't delay a by-election, I won't play games with the by-election, with no Conservative MP of any notable profile coming out publicly and saying Pierre Poilievre has got to go. It would seem to me all indications are Pierre Poilievre is not going anywhere. Let's go to Kitchener on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Frank is on the line. Hello, Frank.
Hey, Rob, I must be a test on how long people will hold just to talk to you, but I respect you so much. I did want to call in today.
Sometimes I get carried away and I speak too much myself, and I'm sorry for that.
I guess you do with some people, but firstly, I want to say I'm disappointed that Kyle, who's an all too regular caller, isn't moving to Hungary. But I want to talk about something more current. I did watch Carney's interview this morning. And
what did you think?
His press conference, and I'm still getting over my major disappointment of the results. I obviously a Conservative supporter and had hope in those regards. But he did really well. And I know we have to move forward for the next few years before an election will be called. But I will say he did really well, and he gave me hope, and maybe it'll give some other people hope that we can limp through and maybe even make some breakthroughs. He said a lot of the right things. I want to comment, however, and it just blew me away, and appreciate your comments and reaction to this, that he would have King Charles read the throne speech at a time where we're so divisive,
Yes.
Why would Carney, who should be pretty smart, and is, want to introduce an issue, a potential issue, into this
that could create controversy. That could create controversy. Yeah. And already the Bloc are outraged. The Parti Québécois is outraged because they don't like the Crown in Quebec for historical reasons, obviously.
I just don't get it. And he said it was a statement and a reaffirmation of our sovereignty, which, and I respect our parliamentary system, but it just struck me as one of the silliest things that he could have done in the midst of actually making a bunch of sensible and hopeful, announcements this morning. So I wanted to just share that. And
it might also be kind of a power move. It might also be a display of power on his part. Like, these are the circles I move in. I can ask the king to come to Ottawa, and the king will come to Ottawa. That's pretty impressive.
Well, I wondered about that, I mean, Trump, he hasn't got respect for anybody, but he has said, what a fine person King Charles is. But Carney was trying to make that kind of statement.
Maybe. That's our time. Got to run. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are in the home stretch of Talkback for another week, and it has been a monumental week in the news business with the election on Monday and the aftermath still reverberating in the news cycle, of course. Neil in Calgary. Hello, Neil. You're on the air. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Rob. I just
Neil.
have 4 quick points I want to make.
Sure.
Why partner with the NDP? Carney is at his height of cockiness and arrogance. He will wipe the egg off his face very soon because he's too smart for his own good.
Okay.
Second thing is, I don't think we should even have the monarchy here to be worrying about it. I think we should get rid of the monarchy.
Okay. Yeah, lots of people feel that way. Yeah.
Third point is $200,000 for a bunch of lazy, incompetent members of parliament makes my blood boil. I always thought these people were parasites. And the final point is the people who are talking about separation in Alberta are being disrespectful to the conservative voters in Ontario and Quebec.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that would be it.
No, that will be it for today. Okay. I'm glad I could allow you to express your grievances, sir. Neil in Calgary, thank you. John also in Calgary. We have some lines available, by the way. We won't be too long. John, you're on the air. Hi, John.
Good afternoon.
Hi, John.
Well, regarding the by-election, I'm not surprised with Pierre. He's a career politician, so okay, here we go again.
Okay.
I think with the type of loss they had, 25-point lead, and even lost his seat. By God, it was time for a leadership change. But go that route. Monarchy, who cares? I think it's a manufactured grievance. It's like whatever. Let's be honest. People are going to complain about what Pierre does or what Mark
Carney
does, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So even if it was one thing or another, but frankly, I think it's time to pull up our get out the shovels and start doing some work and getting this thing going here. And I hope Mark Carney holds to what he said, and we can start building and try to change the way this country is operating. We have no choice.
Okay.
And I think it's going to force all the parties to work together because, who's going to be the party that's going to want to stand in line of, pipelines and building more homes now. It's political suicide.
Right. Well, with pipelines, I mean, there are parties, that will stand in the way. The New Democrats would stand in the way. The Bloc would stand in the way. And there are questions about Mark Carney's commitment to pipelines, for crying out loud.
Well, there might be, but you got to give the guy a chance to see what he'll do.
He has his chance now. He has his chance now.
Exactly. Even if Pierre got in, we'd have to give him a chance. But I have reservations about what he was willing to do and not willing to do. We'll look back in 1, 2, 3 years and see how this government went. Might surprise a lot of people on both sides.
It might. Yeah, it might. It might please people. It might disappoint people.
Exactly.
Chances of that happening are probably 100%. Thank you. Thank you, John. Yeah, for your call. Yeah, it's great to hear from you. I mean, it's amazing how this whole Pierre Poilievre thing has come together. I mean, it's basically come together today. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Poilievre 6 months ago looked like a prime minister in waiting, and yesterday he was staring down a double dose of losses with his party losing the election and him losing his own seat, and news stories about how he would have to move out of his taxpayer-funded residence of Stornoway, because by the letter of the law, the residence goes to the leader of the official opposition in the House of Commons, and that's not Pierre Poilievre because he's not even an MP anymore. And he said it on election night. I mean, he hinted at it. He made it no secret that it would be his desire to stay on and lead the Conservative Party into the next election, whenever that is. Have to think 2 years plus. But he certainly, and David's going to do a big story podcast about this. When is that coming out, that big story pod? Is that for the weekend or is that for Monday?
It'll be Monday. It'll be on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to have a lot of support in the caucus. I mean, it's for days now, it's been one MP after another flooding social media, messages of support, gratitude, praising his leadership. We'll know more when they're going to have a meeting, the Conservative caucus, on Tuesday of next week to talk about all of this. There has not been one member of that caucus who has come out publicly and said, this guy's got to go. They may be whispering that. There may be people who feel like that, whispering that in the ears of members of the Parliamentary Press Gallery, but nobody's standing in front of a television camera and saying it. But some things have been settled now. Because if he wants to get back into the House, he needed to find a Conservative MP who just worked their tail off and won a seat, who would be willing to step aside, trigger a by-election. That was favor number one. That's happened. Safe Conservative riding. Battle River, Crowfoot, 82% of the vote for the Conservative candidate there. The tradition, but it's certainly not a rule, but the tradition is the Prime Minister would call a by-election very soon, like weeks from now, not 6 months from now. And there was some question, well, would Mark Carney be so gracious to offer that to Pierre Poilievre? And he confirmed today, yes, I will not stand in the way of a speedy by-election if that's what the Conservatives want to do. What he didn't say, although he did say no games straight up, also part of that tradition, not a rule, just a tradition. But if it's the leader of the party trying to get a seat in the House, the tradition is the other parties don't run candidates in the election. They basically give the leader of the party the easiest path possible to victory. It's a tradition, not a rule. Would Mark Carney be so kind? He wasn't asked today. So we don't really know if the Liberals plan to run candidates in that by-election. And needless to say, with Conservatives at 82% support in that riding, I mean, something drastic would have to happen for Pierre Poilievre, you would think, to be defeated in that riding. On the whole issue of Stornoway, it doesn't appear as though he's going to have to move out of Stornoway right now. But the simple thing is that was a lot of favors that the Pierre Poilievre people needed to ask. And I'm sure this conversation has been happening in Liberal circles, just given Poilievre's record, the kind of politician he is, his reputation of, a take no prisoners, make no apologies kind of person. If the shoe was on the other foot, would Pierre Poilievre ever be so gracious, so generous and charitable? If it was Mark Carney who had led the Liberals to defeat in the election and lost his own seat and needed to find a way into the House of Commons, would Pierre Poilievre do any favors for Mark Carney? But Mark Carney he's going to clear the path for a by-election, a speedy by-election. Things to think about. As we close out this week in politics, this is Talkback on News Radio. In Cochrane, Ken up next on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. Hi, Ken. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Rob. Just a couple of things. that fellow that called a little bit earlier, saying that Albertans are disrespecting people in Quebec and Ontario, that just shows the arrogance of, and I would imagine that he's not alone in that type of sentiment. It basically shows the type of arrogance that some people, and I'm not saying it's even the vast majority, but a few people in Ontario and Quebec feel, and I guess it illustrates the whole point about how Alberta feels disrespected, and I guess then you could get into, what came first, the chicken or the egg. That's one thing. The other issue is related to Poilievre, and I think he should stay. He is. I think he needs to finish out what he's set forward. He increased the percentage of the Conservative vote. I think it's an all-time high. He did that with some pretty strong headwinds. He had Trump. He had the Benedict Arnold of the Conservatives, Corey Tonight, on a major television network daily, and I'm sure he was paid for that. So I won't get into what his motivations may have been, but he, to me, is a bit of a Benedict Arnold. So and he, out of, I think, I can excuse Ford because Ford, has a mandate from Ontario, but I don't think I can excuse him as a talking head, a pundit with a major television network, continually saying that, and it makes me suspicious of what his motives were.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, it doesn't look like Poilievre is going anywhere. It's the best performance for the history of the Conservative Party since it became the modern day Conservative Party after the merger, between the Alliance and the old PC Party. It's the best result since 1988. It far exceeds what Harper received in any of his elections, including in 2011 when he won a majority government. You have to go back before Mulroney. I mean, it's the best performance since, Diefenbaker, really. Stanfield was allowed to run 3 times and lost all 3 elections. Diefenbaker won in 57. He won a minority. But then in 58 came back and won the largest majority in history. So some things to consider there. Mike in Calgary up next. Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks.
I wanted to talk quickly about the potential upcoming Alberta referendum and Alberta's potential secession from Canada. So a couple of points on it, and then just sort of a question for the other Albertans out there. But under the UCP government, we've had a lot of obvious issues. There's scandals along the healthcare lines. There's scandals along Premier Danielle Smith traveling down to the States, rubbing elbows with quote-unquote MAGAs. There's major issues with our education system of rerouting public dollars to private schools, forcing more kids into classrooms. There's longer waiting times for our surgeries, for everything regarding healthcare, as well as health officials willingly leaving Alberta party stuff. And I guess my question to the Albertans who are considering at all about secession would be, do you kind of feel like Alberta has been in a great place under the UCP in the last sort of decade following Notley, right?
Okay.
And if you don't feel that way, do you really believe that we should leave and put Danielle Smith in charge of a new quote-unquote foreign nation from Canada? The track record has been poor, whether you believe the scandals or not. There hasn't been a lot of clear talk from the party about what has actually occurred. There's not been a lot of third-party investigations allowed to occur. So for my other Albertans, I live in Calgary, and I've lived here for 25 years. I guess I would just say, do you think that the province has been doing better in the last decade with the UCP in charge? And would you really want them to be running a full country the way that they're running our province?
Good questions. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for all your calls. Yeah. Yeah, you too. You too. We'll be right back with some closing thoughts for the week.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I wanted to say a few things why Pierre Poilievre lost his own riding in this election, because there's a lot of things out there on social media that, quite frankly, they're just plain wrong. Videos posted by people coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas, people who don't have the foggiest idea what they're talking about. 91 names on the ballot. Did that hurt Poilievre? Not to the extent people are making it out to be. Because when you are a strong incumbent in any election at any level of government, the strategy is you want the vote that is against you to be split as many ways as possible. So think about this. Did a lot of voters in the riding of Carleton not like Pierre Poilievre? Obviously. But Pierre Poilievre had all the pro-Poilievre vote, and he had the anti-Poilievre vote split 90 different ways. That's usually a dream scenario for any incumbent. What killed Poilievre, and it wasn't like Bruce Fanjoy of the Liberals is some kind of political genius. Yeah, he worked hard. I'm not taking anything away from that. But he also had the entire Ottawa Liberal machine behind him. Okay? The Ottawa Liberal machine was out in full force for Fanjoy in Carleton. Every single Liberal MP was told at least once to get out there, stop knocking on doors in your own riding. Your riding is safe. Get out there and help Fanjoy in Carleton. And that's what the MP from Ottawa Centre, Ottawa West Nepean, Canada, the East End of Ottawa, Orleans, they all took time out of their campaigns because their seats weren't in doubt, and they all flooded Carleton. As well, yes, the riding boundaries were changed 10 years ago. Now, some people are saying the Liberals rigged the boundaries to favor them. It's total nonsense. Poilievre had a choice 10 years ago when the boundaries were redrawn, and it was his choice where he wanted to run. He could have run in Nepean, where Mark Carney ran, but that was the suburban part of the old riding. He chose to run in Carleton because it would be better for him politically, because it's more rural. This didn't happen recently. These boundaries were redrawn more than a decade ago. Okay? More than 10 years ago. Poilievre's won many elections since then. And as well, Ottawa's a city of more than 1 million people, and you think about what's happened in the last 10 years in every major Canadian city, what has happened? Growth, and lots of it. And in Carleton, what used to be vast tracts of farmland is now acre after acre of new housing with single-family homes and townhomes as far as the eye can see, and a lot of people living there. Where do they work? For the federal government. And even though the Liberals were planning to do a program review anyway, they went all across that riding and told people, if you elect Poilievre, you're going to lose your job in the government. And it worked. The single biggest factor, though, that hurt Poilievre in Carleton was not that Bruce Fanjoy was David and Poilievre was Goliath. It was that the NDP vote disappeared. 4 years ago, the NDP candidate in that riding got more than 8,000 votes. This time around, 1,200 votes. The NDP lost 7,000 votes. Bruce Fanjoy won by a little more than 4,000. There's no conspiracy. There's no conspiracy. And people posting videos on social media that there is, haven't spent 5 minutes in that riding. Back on Monday.